Hi, this is Brittany McKinney doing my journal one entry for our competency one. Um, I'm going to be looking kind of back and forth on my screen for our journal prompt as well as some of the things that I'm going to need to be going over for my competency. First, we're going to provide a brief summary of my assignment. So the assignment I'm going to do is our journal entry, and this is going to be one of the four that we do over 1, 2, 3, and 6 competencies. Um, and so this assignment relates to our practicum because with competency one, we're practicing ethical standards here. And I am in a nonprofit clinician setting. And so I deal with a lot of clients and a lot of different like diversity and backgrounds. And I've already been encountered with some situations where you have to kind of operate by a code of ethics, which is just a little bit different than your own opinion or how you want to operate. And so this applies to my practicum because it gives me a standard to operate by. Relating this to what I'm currently doing in my field placement. Right now in my field placement, I have been shadowing my supervisor in some of her sessions, kind of exploring EMDR as she does it with some of her clients. Have been networking with different entities throughout the community, just kind of like building caseloads up and just kind of putting names out there, trying to get referral sources back and forth. Um, and so relating that to our competency, we're making ethical decisions and we're being professional and we are using our technology in an appropriate manner. I'm having to, set up clients with new caseloads, and with that, comes their client portal systems, and it comes you needing the ROIs and the just all the specifics that you have permission to say, hey, I have, this person's permission to know things about their personal life and about their medical history. That is one thing that I've noticed, as a clinician, it's different. It's almost like you're in a medical field in a sense. You do have to operate with a certain procedure in order for your claims to be covered and in order for your client to be taken care of, because it's your word and it's your diagnosis and it's your notes that are essentially going to affect the medical treatment that they get. Have you engaged in the behaviors for this competency at your agency? I have engaged with competency one within my agency in a lot of different manners. I started doing case management prior to doing my master clinical internship at my facility, Kentucky Trauma Therapy. And we were actually networking with a inpatient treatment facility while we were offering like outpatient services to this facility. And there ended up just being actually an ethical issue of like some brokering of services and some like HIPAA violations between like clients and autonomy and their providers, and even, some Medicaid compliance stuff. And so it just felt really sticky, to kind of be that like my first time in this position in this field doing these things, and to have to like stand up against, the grain and be like, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and it kind of doesn't necessarily advocate for the well-being of my client. So yeah, we've had to do some HR things within that place, and that contract ended, and that was like a big lesson in my first month of my internship that, um you have to be in compliance with, your own ethical standards and Medicaid as well, because you have to operate, at a higher I'm gonna say just grade of integrity. Discussion of what I've been doing in my practicum. So outside of networking and shadowing, I'm learning, oh man, I'm learning all kinds of cool stuff. I get to learn about how to actually apply these theories that we've been reading about for so many, I'm going to say years now. Just last week, we were talking about relational theory, and I got to kind of understand, how obviously our atmosphere has always affected us, or the things around us, our surroundings, but the correlation between the things that were ingrained in us, and that internal critic and those thought systems that we have. And so that was really cool to be able to identify that. And I did like a little mock video for one of our assignments, and to be able to actually apply that in real life outside of just reading, is pretty cool. It's one of my most favorite things about this part of my education. And then describe your strengths and your experiences. Um, I would probably say one of my strengths is probably being in the recovery field. I've been in kind of the recovery setting for about 8 years now. So I've worked in different facilities, and sorry, we're doing another assignment for a class, and it looks like some things are being turned in. However, I've worked in the field for quite a few years, and so I've gotten to work at a few different clinical settings, a couple of nonprofit settings. I feel like I've kind of got to see a lot of ins and outs of a lot of the social work field. So that's kind of given me an advantage to see what EHRs are prior to this experience, to know how to have to do documentation, and insurance compliance, and dotting our I's and crossing our T's, and all of the small things that you don't necessarily learn in a classroom setting. Those are one of my strengths. However, I'm also going to say that that's probably one of my weaknesses too, because I have a lot of life experience. And because I have a lot of life experience, sometimes I struggle in the professional, I'm going to say like APA paper writing, reference writing. I'm just trying to tie into like how I can prove we know these things versus it being life experience. And so that's always pretty, I'm going to say challenging sometimes, just to back up like what I'm trying to say. However, it's been one of the best parts about being a college student, and being able to learn how to prove what we know, which is what we will practice in this field. With we use we use proven studies, and I appreciate that because we can say, no, this is why this is the way that it is. Um, Experience challenged you, helped me grow. I think just working in a clinical field, and like doing the things that I need to do. Sorry, getting back on track here. One of our next points to be talked about is to ask what are some of the challenges that we've kind of had in this professional experience right now. And I would say working in a rural environment. I'm actually from a rural town, and so I kind of experiences these lack of resources whenever I was growing up. And I remember, finally like living in a bigger city like Bowling Green, and just how like grateful I was to be able to have options to get services for different things. And so part of, whenever we were working with that other facility, it was in a very rural area. And I mean, there would be times when I would be trying to just to make a dentist appointment with my client, and we would have to drive down the road from their address like a mile just to get enough service to be able to make a call. And so, just the challenges that we're reading about in books, and it's just like, no, I'm living that out here. And just even not being able to find providers for certain insurance carriers, and just calling, 10, sometimes 20 providers to figure out like, okay, my client has this problem and I need to find a solution. And sometimes I'm also finding that I have had some clients that are just not in the change process enough to want to make that difference yet. And so it's been a little painful having to look at that and see, um, I can't try to advocate more for somebody or fight more for somebody than they're willing to do for themselves. Some of the feedback that I've received during supervision, I would say some of it is to try to be applying more of my theories whenever I'm like shadowing people or kind of seeing how they practice, especially like with cognitive behavioral and looking more at like client cues and kind of gauging how to take a conversation and like their level of willingness, like where they're at that day, especially since I kind of get to sit in on a lot of like heavy trauma cases, just kind of reading the room, gauging, building rapport. Thoughts and my feedbacks related as my progress as a professional master's level social worker in training. That's a long sentence, but I feel like it's important because I feel like the jump between a BSW student and an MSW student it's crazy because it is clinical and your responsibilities grow exponentially. You're responsible for diagnosis, you're responsible for putting marks on somebody's medical history, and you are playing a big role in some of the services they may receive or may not receive. And it's kind of up to you to advocate and kind of see, you know, this is what my client's presenting and like how can I help them, and kind of just seeing a holistic picture. And so yeah, it's challenging, but it's really interesting too. And I am really excited to be able to just continue to grow and to apply some of the things that we've learned all the way up until now and continue to be able to understand, the process of our education. Some of the ADI practices that I observed in my agency, we actually have a nonprofit, like connected to our agency called Lotus, and Lotus is a harm reduction little program, and they kind of have a lot of like setups for LGBTQ, sexual, transmitted diseases like, protection. They'll hand out, free protection. We even have like a Narcan program there. Just looking at, the addicted community, sometimes the homeless community, we like definitely try to get like hygiene drives and stuff going on. So just the sheer, I'm gonna say admission that we deal with disgruntled populations and we try our best to advocate and help with some of those needs that they may have. And my current self plan. So, if we're being completely honest here, I've not looked at my self-care plan in the last 6 weeks that we've been in school because I just feel like this last week was the first week that I could almost catch my breath and figure out like what my days look like, what my homework routine needs to be, when I need to do documentation for work, when I need to do assignments, and how it applies to, my core classes. Um, I would say that I've probably been lacking in some self-care. However, I don't necessarily know where to find more time. I think just being a little more um diligent like with my time that I'm spending. Um And to also just continue to give myself some grace the same way that I give others grace. I've started a lot of new things recently, and I know that it takes a little bit of time to build some consistency and get new routines. And of course, as soon as we get one routine down, it'll always be changing. So, yeah, let's see. Some of the barriers, both my kids started football this season again, and so that's always a crazy busy time. Then between like school, internship, just life, meetings, recovery, work. Um, yeah, our plates are very full. However, it's manageable and it is doable. And I do believe that we have the experience that we can ask for help from, our school or our professors or, the people that we work for if we need it. I definitely feel really supported in that area. My plan may definitely change, as I get a little bit further along in my pregnancy. However, it's not been a barrier so far, and I feel like being transparent about, where I'm at and how I can show up has always just been beneficial. And I just always like to also ask, like, am I meeting the mark for you? Am I doing what I need to do? Because I do hold myself to a higher standard that am competent to be an ethical social worker up until this point. and I'm tracking the progress of my self-care plan. Sometimes, honestly, I just think it's like, am I burnt out or not? Like, what is my spiritual condition today? And just kind of taking it day by day. And that's kind of helped a lot, especially with the stress of like our workload and course load. Is I'm like, okay, what can you take care of today? And what can you prioritize to get done at a different time? Just finding that balance. And I think it's going to be just a revolving thing of like what works and what don't work. However, I am taking vacation next week. Hopefully, if the weather holds off, we will have a good time and I get to sit still with my family some. I definitely look forward to being able to do those things and trying to slow down a little bit. I've done a lot better this year, having a little baby at home and life is just changing. So I definitely believe in slowing down, being still as much as possible, and just continuing to try. So I hope that covers most of my journal that we needed to go over. I believe, in our competency one that are um we are being professionals and we are having to operate from the code of ethics. And we also have to take a look at, how our personal judgment and our biases may influence the way that we practice. And it's just kind of like the first competency that leads into the second and third that we're going to need to continue to grow to be the best clinician possible. So thank you for your time and I hope you have a great day.